Hi there. Have any fans of old school professional wrestling in the house? That's a better turnout than I would have expected. I'll tell you, if you're trying to pick up a nice young lady at the bar, I don't recommend starting out by telling her that you're writing a series of poems about old school professional wrestling. People might get the wrong impression. But it's kind of a connection to this old, weird America that goes back to vaudeville and carnivals, and there's something fascinating about it, so perhaps you'll agree. Oh, and everything in this poem is real, except for the parts that are not. So this is called Oklahoma Tall Tales, or Whatever Happened to the National Wrestling Alliance. There's a hardware store in Louisville with an aging poster in the window advertising an appearance by the great NWA champion Danny Hodge, who pinned 46 men at Oklahoma State without dropping a point, who was cheated of his gold medal against a Bulgarian Red in Melbourne, who had made it right with gold gloves in Chicago, and who was always early with a pocket full of tickets. And there's Danny Hodge in the hardware store in Louisville with his poster in the window, watching the owner dig out a box of pliers, drop them on the counter with a clatter. So, I hear you're tough. Danny Hodge was never taken down from the top position. On that cold night outside Monroe, when Hodge's Volkswagen went off the bridge, when it rung off every rock banister like some charmed skipping stone, broken teeth, broken neck, Black Creek sudden, then still. Davy Crockett rippled in the night next to 16 dead Mexicans. Danny Hodge held his spine together in his fist, spat shattered teeth into the rising wetness, and punched out the windshield. The crick was no better than the waves who'd come to pin him and went sobbing to their coach's arms, while Hodge trudged cautious in the muck, freighted with expectation as a Chinese railroad man carrying nitroglycerin. The crowd gathered on the shore to watch him rise again. Do the trick with the pliers, they demanded, thrusting a pair into his wet hand. So Danny Hodge sold tickets. If you've never seen a man break a pair of pliers with his hands, you've been spared, unknowingly, nightmares of gnarled fingers finding purchase on your pelvis and cracking it open like a crab shell. Danny Hodge broke 31 pairs of pliers in a sitting without breaking eye contact with the proprietor of the hardware store, who sat rapt, thinking nothing of the day's losses. He was Edward Payson Weston walking 550 miles in 142 hours, Mike Fink shooting the tail off a pig at 90 paces, or perhaps Paris Hilton drowning a Balthazar of Moet in a sitting. A reference that will likely yellow and peel away from this poem like tabloid pulp glued to a flagpole. Who are the iterate journalists documenting these oddly specific feats before the aftermags and dirt sheets? The art of woodcutting was long disused before Hodge's wars with Mad Dog Vachon, that Canadian maniac come from the back page of a comic book, who carried home the death agonies of a dozen Canadians on each of his scarred forearms. But the urge to reconstruct, that remained. Who saw it? Who whispered to his fellows, sat with child on knee, and told the tale? It's work worthy of folklore, this inexorable flexing of muscle, palpating a country's heart by hand. He was lucky he got into town early in those days. The line in Louisville was out the door of the store. Farmers with bushels of apples, masons with wheelbarrows of would-be walls, local arm wrestling champions with their arms, all carrying the things they most wanted and worried to see broken. A question never asked of Paul Bunyan inhaling his 50 pancakes each morning. On this, you rest your legacy? I drank fresh-pressed apple juice, remarked, "Shit, we should have charged admission." Hodge looked glum, crumpled a black box recorder, and handed it back to an astonished airman. But where did the National Wrestling Alliance go? When Danny Hodge passes through the full-body X-ray scan, waiting to fly across a country he could once traverse in 5 bold strides, legends wander under his skin like the stars in a breeze, his bones a maze of railroad spikes, ring ropes twinning the tendons of his turnbuckle fists. Wisely, they let him through. It's the man next in line who delays takeoff, trapped in customs for hours, trying to explain why his carry-on is overflowing with pliers. Thanks.